Hi guys, welcome back to my class. I'm your Korean teacher, Emma from SEEMILE. What did you learn in the last class? How to refer to locations or objects located near the speaker, 여기, 이것, far from both the speaker and the listener, 저기, 저것, and close to the listener but far from the speaker, 거기, 그것. You also learned how to refer to the existence of something or someone using 있어요, 없어요, and a new postpositional particle, 에, that tells the listener that the noun preceding it indicates the location where something or someone is. Today, we're going to see what we can learn from Adam and her friends related to the topic of food. But before that, let's learn some new vocabulary related to that topic. 식당, 서점, 고기, 빵, 커피, 차, 주스, 채소, 생선, 스파게티, 국수, 그릇, 의자, 쓰레기, 가다, 먹다, 사다, 앉다, 마시다, 씻다. Good job! So up until the previous class, we learned that in Korean, the predicate can be conjugated differently according to the social status of or depth of your relationship with the listener. So today, you're finally going to learn some of the grammatical rules for that type of conjugation. To understand this, you first need to understand some features of predicates in Korean sentences. In Korean, verbs and adjectives can be placed in the usual spot where predicates are, and both of them are conjugated according to tense, sentence types, level of politeness required, and so on. They consist of a word stem, the part that does not change, and a word ending, the part that actually gets conjugated. For example, the conjugated form of the verb 씻다 could be 씻어요 or 씻습니다. Here the stem 씻 remains unchanged while the endings 다, 어요, 씁니다 are all possible options depending on the situation. Let's take another example. The conjugated form of the adjective 짧다, which means to be short, could be 짧아요, 짧습니다. Can you find the part of the word which remains unchanged even when it's being conjugated? Yes, 짤. So this 짤 is the stem and 다 아였습니다 is the ending that's undergoing conjugation. To give you a tip, the only thing you have to do to figure out the stem is just deleting 다 from the dictionary form of verbs and adjectives. Let's practice. What is the word stem of 가다? Just delete 다. Yes, 가. How about 사다? 사. 앉다? 안. 마시다? 마시. Good job! Now you're ready to learn a new grammar point. Then let's watch what we can learn from Adam and her friends about the topic of food.
존이 식당에 가요. 카이가 고기를 사요.
저는 커피를 마셔요.
로한이 채소를 씻어요.
히토미가 빵을 먹어요.
We haven't learned about the postpositional particles 이 and 에 here placed after the nouns in a sentence, and I'm not going to go into detail about them right now because you're going to learn about them quite soon, one today and the other in the near future. But still, with those words, 존 and 식당, the restaurant, we can guess that he wants to say John goes to the restaurant. We know that to go in Korean is 가다. And from our past experience, we know that Korean sentences usually end in something 요 or 니다. So if you guess that some changes need to be made to 가다, then you're right. To complete a sentence in the present tense, explaining current facts or conditions, 어요 or 씁니다 is combined with a word stem. How does this work? Well, let's look at the informal form, 아요, 어요 first. When the final vowel of the stem is o or add 아요 after the stem. When the last vowel of the stem is something other than o and then add 어요 after the stem. I know it sounds a bit complicating, so let's practice together. 가다. Erase 다 and find the stem 가. Its vowel is one of two o, so we would add 아요. Let's keep in mind the fact that the circle-shaped consonant 이응 doesn't have any sound value when it comes to the initial consonant place. So, 가요 actually has the same sound value as 가요. The shorter the better, right? Just drop one of the vowels and write 가요. The same works for 사다. Erase 다, and we find the stem 사, and we also see that the vowel is one of the two 오, 아. So we add 아요. The ah of 사 and ah of 아요 have the same sound, so drop one of them and just read and write it as 사요. Good job! Next, 앉다, to sit. The stem is 안 and its vowel is 아, so we add 아요 and it becomes 앉아요. 오다, to come. The stem is 오, so we would add 아요, 오아요. Wait a minute. We know a vowel that's the combination of these two vowels, 오아. Yes, 와. Again, the shorter the better, so just contract them to 와요. Next, 마시다. Erase that, then the word stem 마시 is there. The vowel of the last word 시 is 이. It's neither 오 nor 아, so we add 어요 this time. Again, 이응 is in the initial consonant place where 어 is, and it acts just as a placeholder without any sound value. So you can combine the 이 of 시 and 어 of 어요 to form 여. 마시어요, 마셔요. Great! Next, 씻다. The stem is 씻 and its vowel is 이, not 오 or 아, so we add 어요. 씻어요. 먹다. The stem is 먹 and its vowel is 어. Again, not either of those two 오 and 아, so we add 어요. 먹어요. Now let's move back to the sentences in the video we watched a few minutes ago. How can we complete this sentence to say John goes to a restaurant? Yes, 가요. 존이 식당에 가요. Kai buys meat. 사요. 카이가 고기를 사요. I drink coffee. 마셔요. 저는 커피를 마셔요. 로한 washes vegetables. 씻어요. 로한이 채소를 씻어요. 히토미 eats bread. 먹어요. 히토미가 빵을 먹어요. Good job. Now let's learn about the present formal ending. When the word stem ends in a vowel or the consonant 리을, find the last syllable of the stem and place 비읍 in the final consonant place of that stem, then finish with 니다. When the stem ends in a consonant other than 리을, just add 습니다 after that. For example, 가다. Put 비읍 in the final consonant place of 가 and add 니다. 갑니다. Here, the final consonant 비읍 meets 니은. It's not easy to pronounce them quickly with each of their standard sound like 갑니다. At this point, you may recall the role of nasalization we learned in lesson 4. Right, for the ease of pronunciation, when 비읍 is followed by 니은, 비읍 is actually pronounced just like its corresponding nasal sound, 미음. So even though it's written as 갑니다, just pronounce it 갑니다. Much easier, isn't it? Next, 사다. Again, its stem ends in a vowel. Put 비읍 as the final consonant of 사 and add 니다. 삽니다. On the other hand, the next word, 앉다, ends in a consonant other than 리을, so just add 습니다 after 안. 앉습니다. 오다 ends in a vowel, 옵니다. 마시다 ends in a vowel, 마십니다. 씻다 ends in a consonant, 씻습니다. 먹다 again ends in a consonant, 먹습니다. Now let's say these sentences in Korean as if we were in a formal situation. John goes to a restaurant, 갑니다. 존이 식당에 갑니다. Kai buys meat, 삽니다. 카이가 고기를 삽니다. I drink coffee, 마십니다. 저는 커피를 마십니다. 로한 washes vegetables. 씻습니다. 로한이 채소를 씻습니다. 히토미 eats bread. 먹습니다. 히토미가 빵을 먹습니다. Good job! Let's sum up the points we've learned up to now about the present tense by ending with this example. To throw out in Korean is 버리다. Its stem is 버리 and its last vowel is E, not O or A. So in an informal setting, you should add 어요, 버리어요, and check to see if 어 can be combined with the previous vowel. And in this case, it can. So it becomes 버려요. 아람이가 쓰레기를 버려요. If it's a formal situation, check if the stem ends in a vowel, and here it does, so 버립니다. 아람이가 쓰레기를 버립니다. Please repeat after me out loud. 존이 식당에 가요. 카이가 고기를 사요. 저는 커피를 마셔요. 로한이 채소를 씻어요. 히토미가 빵을 먹어요. 존이 식당에 갑니다. 카이가 고기를 삽니다. 저는 커피를 마십니다. 로한이 채소를 씻습니다. 히토미가 빵을 먹습니다. 아람이가 쓰레기를 버려요. 아람이가 쓰레기를 버립니다. Excellent! Now let's watch what Aram and her friends don't do when it comes to food.
존이 서점에 안 가요. 카이가 생선을 안 사요.
저는 차를 안 마셔요.
로한이 접시를 안 씻어요. 히토미가 스파게티를 안 먹어요.
Did you notice the word that was added to say that they don't do something? Yes, 안 was added before the verbs. 존이 서점에 가요. 존이 서점에 안 가요. How easy is that? 카이가 생선을 사요. 카이가 생선을 안 사요. 저는 차를 마셔요. 저는 차를 안 마셔요. 로한이 접시를 씻어요. 로한이 접시를 안 씻어요. 히토미가 스파게티를 먹어요. 히토미가 스파게티를 안 먹어요. These are all for an informal setting. Let's also practice how to say this in a formal setting. To go, 가다, 갑니다. 존이 서점에 갑니다. 존이 서점에 안 갑니다. To buy, 사다, 삽니다. 카이가 생선을 삽니다. 카이가 생선을 안 삽니다. To drink, 마시다, 마십니다. 저는 차를 마십니다. 저는 차를 안 마십니다. To wash, 씻다, 씻습니다. 로한이 접시를 씻습니다. 로한이 접시를 안 씻습니다. To eat, 먹다, 먹습니다. 히토미가 스파게티를 먹습니다. 히토미가 스파게티를 안 먹습니다. Please repeat after me out loud. 존이 서점에 안 가요. 카이가 생선을 안 사요. 저는 차를 안 마셔요. 로한이 접시를 안 씻어요. 히토미가 스파게티를 안 먹어요. 존이 서점에 안 갑니다. 카이가 생선을 안 삽니다. 저는 차를 안 마십니다. 로한이 접시를 안 씻습니다. 히토미가 스파게티를 안 먹습니다. Good job! You know, adding an before the verb is not the only way we make negative sentences. Then what other method is there? Please try to figure it out while watching the next video.
존이 서점에 가지 않아요. 카이가 생선을 사지 않아요.
저는 차를 마시지 않아요.
로한이 접시를 씻지 않아요.
히토미가 스파게티를 먹지 않아요.
Were you able to find the answer? That's right. It's by attaching 지 않다 to the word stem. What is the formal form of 지 않다? The stem 안 ends in a consonant, so we would add 씁니다. 지 않습니다. How about the informal form? Yes, the last vowel of the stem is 아, so add 아요. 지 않아요. One more thing. When you're talking to a close peer, it's okay to delete 요 and just say 지 않아. Let's practice this. To go, 가다. Not to go, 가지 않다. John doesn't go to the bookstore. With formality, 존이 서점에 가지 않습니다. Without formality, 존이 서점에 가지 않아요. To buy, 사다. Not to buy, 사지 않다. With formality, 카이가 생선을 사지 않습니다. Without formality, 카이가 생선을 사지 않아요. To drink, 마시다. Not to drink, 마시지 않다. With formality, 저는 차를 마시지 않습니다. Without formality, 저는 차를 마시지 않아요. To wash, 씻다. Not to wash, 씻지 않다. With formality, 로한이 접시를 씻지 않습니다. Without formality, 로한이 접시를 씻지 않아요. To eat, 먹다. Not to eat, 먹지 않다. With formality, 히토미가 스파게티를 먹지 않습니다. And without formality, 히토미가 스파게티를 먹지 않아요. Now please repeat after me out loud. 존이 서점에 가지 않습니다. 존이 서점에 가지 않아요. 카이가 생선을 사지 않습니다. 카이가 생선을 사지 않아요. 저는 차를 마시지 않습니다. 저는 차를 마시지 않아요. 로한이 접시를 씻지 않습니다. 로한이 접시를 씻지 않아요. 히토미가 스파게티를 먹지 않습니다. 히토미가 스파게티를 먹지 않아요. Of course, at times we need to ask questions. So, how do we create an interrogative form in Korean? You may remember something about this topic from lesson 5, but even if not, no worries. It's really easy. Let's find out the answer in this next video.
조는 식당에 안 가요?
아니요. 조는 식당에 가요.
카이는 생선을 사요?
아니요. 카이는 고기를 사요.
아람 씨는 커피를 마셔요?
네, 저는 커피를 마셔요.
로하는 과일을 씻어요?
아니요. 로하는 채소를 씻어요.
When speaking informally, you don't need to change any words in order to transform a declarative sentence into an interrogative form, just the intonation. If you give the following tone at the end of the sentence, like 존이 식당에 안 가요, it remains a normal declarative sentence. On the other hand, if you give the rising tone at the end of the sentence like 존이 식당에 안 가요, Korean listeners will naturally understand that it's a question. When speaking formally, the only thing you need to do to change a declarative sentence into the interrogative form is changing the last word from 다 to 가. For example, John doesn't go to a restaurant in Korean is 존이 식당에 안 갑니다. Now change 다 into 가 and make it a question, giving the rising tone at the end of it. 존이 식당에 안 갑니까? Good job! Let's take on another example. Do you remember how to say 아람 throws out the trash? Yes, 아람이가 쓰레기를 버려요. Or 아람이가 쓰레기를 버립니다. Then how can you change these two versions into their interrogative forms? As for the informal expression, just insert a rising tone at the end of the sentence. 아람이가 쓰레기를 버려요. But when it comes to the formal version, change the ending 다 into 까 and then use the tone change at the end as well, like 아람이가 쓰레기를 버립니까? Then how would you answer those questions? To answer in a respectful way, you would use 네 for an affirmative answer and 아니요 for a negative answer. When speaking informally to a close friend or peer, use 응 in place of 네 and 아니 for the opposite. There's one point you need to be careful of when you answer in Korean using 네 or 아니요. In English, the way you answer isn't impacted by whether or not the question is positive or negative. For example, let's say someone asks you, "Don't you eat spaghetti?" The question is negative. It asks if you don't eat spaghetti. If you do eat spaghetti, then in English you would say, "Yes, I do," even though the question was phrased in the negative. But in Korean, if someone asks you the same question like 스파게티 안 먹어요? Because that part of the question, you don't eat spaghetti, is not true, you would start your answer to the question with 아니요, like 아니요, 저는 스파게티 먹어요. In a nutshell, in English, you choose to start your answer yes or no depending on the answer. But in Korean, you must choose to do so depending on the question. So when someone asks you a yes or no question, please listen carefully to how it is phrased, whether it is positive or negative, in order to give a proper answer and avoid any misunderstandings. Then let's go back to the sentences in the video. Question. 조는 식당에 안 가요? The fact. John goes to a restaurant. 조는 식당에 가요. Since it's not true that John doesn't go to a restaurant, the answer should be 아니요. 조는 식당에 가요. Next question. 카이는 생선을 사요? The fact. Kai buys meat. 카이는 고기를 사요. Since it's not true that Kai buys fish, the answer 아니요. 카이는 고기를 사요. Next. 아람 씨는 커피를 마셔요? The fact. She does drink coffee. So now, since it's true that 아람 drinks coffee, this time the answer should be 네, 저는 커피를 마셔요. For your reference, she here is a bound noun that's always placed after a person's name to address or refer to him in a deferential manner. But if you notice that the speaker doesn't do so, maybe it's because 아람 is younger than him, and in that case, he would just say 아람이는. Next question. 로한은 과일을 씻어요? Again, the fact is that 로한 washes the vegetables, not the fruit. Since 로한 doesn't wash the fruit, then the answers start 아니요, 로한은 채소를 씻어요. Now repeat after me. 아람이가 쓰레기를 버려요? 아람이가 쓰레기를 버립니까? 조는 식당에 안 가요? 아니요, 조는 식당에 가요. 카이는 생선을 사요? 아니요, 카이는 고기를 사요. 아람 씨는 커피를 마셔요? 네, 저는 커피를 마셔요. 로하는 과일을 씻어요? 아니요, 로하는 채소를 씻어요. Great job! So in today's lesson, you encountered some new marking particles you haven't learned yet, like 을을, 에 indicating a destination, and 이가. Out of those, we are now going to learn more about the third one, 이가. Watch the following video and guess what this particle is for.
존이 의자에 앉아요. 카이가 생선을 구워요.
아람이가 주스를 안 마셔요. 로한이 그릇을 씻어요?
아니요. 로하는 채소를 씻어요.
히토미가 국수를 안 먹어요.
The common point you must have noticed here is that the particle 이가 is attached to a noun that occurs at the beginning of the sentence, which refers to the doer of the action, in other words, the subject of the sentence. Yes, this particle is used to tell the listener that the noun placed before it is the subject of the sentence. So 이가 is also called the subject marking particle. A rule you're already familiar with is applied here to decide which one to use. When the noun ends in a consonant, use 이. On the other hand, when it ends in a vowel, use 가. Look at this picture. Who is he? 존. What is he doing? He's sitting on the chair. 의자에 앉아요. John is the one who is performing the action, sitting on the chair. So the subject of the sentence is John, and since the name 존 ends in a consonant, that's why 이 is attached afterward. 존이 의자에 앉아요. Here is Kai. He's the one grilling the fish. 생선을 굽다. Kai is the subject, and since his name Kai ends in a vowel, 가 is attached. 카이가 생선을 구워요. Wait a minute. You might say, according to what you already taught us, to grill in Korean is 굽다 and the vowel of the stem is 우, not either O or 아, so 어요 would have to be attached to it, so shouldn't it be 굽어요, not 구워요? Very good question. In Korean, there are some verbs and adjectives whose stem ends in 비읍 that change into 우 or 오 when it meets an ending that starts in a vowel. We call that grammatical phenomenon the 비읍 irregular. In most cases, 비읍 becomes 우, but as for the 비읍 found in the words 돕다 and 곱다, those change into 오. So let's go back to the sentence and see how 굽다 gets conjugated to 구워요. 굽다 is one of the words where the 비읍 irregular rule is applied. So the final consonant 비읍 becomes 우, and the stem changes into 구우. There 어요 is added. 구어요. And as you already know, 우어 can be combined as 워, making the result 구워요. That's how it works. 카이가 생선을 구워요. Good job. Next, 아람 doesn't drink juice. 주스를 안 마셔요. 아람 is the doer of the action. She is the one not drinking the juice. She is the subject of the sentence, and her name 아람이 ends in a vowel, so we add 가. We say 아람이가 주스를 안 마셔요. At this point, you may wonder why I continue to say 아람이 even though her name is 아람. Korean speakers tend to attach the suffix 이 after the name of animate nouns that ends in a consonant like 아람이, 지민이, but not after one that ends in a vowel like 윤기. That's why I've at times said 아람이가, 아람이는. This suffix is mainly used in spoken language rather than written language. Adding this suffix to someone's name who is older than you or has a higher social status can be construed as rude. It is used by the speaker to convey the sense of a personal relationship or acquaintance with the person being referring to. Although grammatically and socially speaking it's acceptable to omit it, attaching 이 helps to soften the tone when calling the person's name. But like John and Lohan, if the name is from different language, you would rarely hear Korean people add 이 after the name. Next, Lohan is the subject in the question Hitomi is asking, and his name Lohan ends in a consonant, so 이 is added. 로한이 그릇을 씻어요? And one interesting point is that in Aram's answer, the subject marking particle 이가 is not used, but rather the topic marking particle 은는 is used. So you may be wondering, since Lohan is the one washing the vegetables, isn't he the subject of the sentence? So wouldn't it be correct to use 이가 here? Another very good question. In fact, based on what we want to emphasize in the sentence, anything can be a topic. Let's suppose you need to tell me that Hitomi goes to a restaurant to have a steak. Now, based on what you want to emphasize, you may say in this way, it is Hitomi who goes to ABC restaurant to have a steak, or it is ABC restaurant where Hitomi goes to have a steak, or it is a steak that Hitomi is going to have at ABC restaurant. You can make anything you want the topic in your sentence, right? Likewise, the topic marking particle 은는 can be attached at various places in a sentence depending on what you choose as the topic. So please don't be confused if you see 은는 in place of or after another postpositional particle. Just view it as another hint about the meaning of the content. For some of you guys, it may sound quite difficult, but don't worry. The more Korean sentences you are exposed to, the better you will become at grasping the nuance. You'll eventually be able to easily ascertain whether to use 은는 or not. So don't get scared just yet. Just try to expose yourself to and practice aloud as many Korean sentences as possible. Next, here's Hitomi, and she's the one who's not eating noodles, right? Since Hitomi ends in a vowel, we add 가 after that and say 히토미가 국수를 안 먹어요. Now, please repeat after me. 존이 의자에 앉아요. 카이가 생선을 구워요. 아람이가 주스를 안 마셔요. 로한이 그릇을 씻어요? 아니요, 로한은 채소를 씻어요. 히토미가 국수를 안 먹어요. Good job! For more examples, please see page 53. Now, while solving the questions on page 55, let's review what we've learned today. Number 1. Choose the right picture. Let's read the sentence out loud. 카이가 고기를 사요. 고기 is meat and 사다 means to buy, so number 4 best describes the sentence. Pause and read the next sentence out loud. Good job! 존이 서점에 가지 않아요. The ending 지 않아요 makes the sentence negative, so it means John doesn't go to the bookstore. In picture number 1, John is going to a restaurant, not a bookstore, so number 1 would be the answer. Now question number 2, complete the sentence, choose from the list. Number 1, 네 is used to give a positive answer to a question, so the preceding sentence would have to be in an interrogative form. 네, it means what you asked me is correct. Aram does drink coffee, so the appropriate question would be, does Aram drink coffee? To drink in Korean is 마시다, and the vowel of the last word of its stem is 이, so we would add 어요. 마시어요, 마셔요 is the correct answer. Repeat after me. 아람 씨는 커피를 마셔요? 네, 저는 커피를 마셔요. Number 2. 생선을 구워요. To grill fish. Kai must be the one who performs the action. In other words, he is the subject of the sentence. And the name kai ends in a vowel, so the subject marking particle ka should be used afterward. Repeat after me. 카이가 생선을 구워요. Number 3. 존이 서점에 가요. We see the word bookstore and the verb to go. An out of the list is the most appropriate word to be placed in the blank. So the purpose of an is to make the sentence negative, and it's placed before the verb of a sentence. 존이 서점에 안 가요. Number 4. 아니요 is used to give a negative answer to a question, so the preceding sentence should be in an interrogative form. 아니요? It means what you asked in your question is wrong. So it's not true that Kai buys a fish because the fact is that Kai is buying meat. So the question should be, is Kai buying fish? So 사요 is the correct answer. Repeat after me. 카이가 생선을 사요? 아니요, 카이는 고기를 사요. Number 5. 저는 차를 마시. 차 is a tea and 마시다 is to drink. There's only one ending that can be attached to a verb stem like 마시. Yes, 지 않아요. And using this ending is another way to make a negative sentence. So now this sentence means I don't drink tea. Repeat after me. 저는 차를 마시지 않아요. Number 6. 존이 식당에. 식당 is a restaurant, and with these words, we can assume that the speaker wants to say that John goes to a restaurant, and to go in Korean is 가다. Its stem is 가, and its vowel is 아. So we add 아요. 가요, 가요. 존이 식당에 가요. Number 7. 의자에 앉아요. To sit on a chair. 존 is mentioned in the beginning of the sentence, so he must be the subject of the sentence, the one who sits on the chair. And the name 존 ends in a consonant, so the subject marking particle 이 should be used. 존이 의자에 앉아요. Number 8. 로한이 채소를. What do we do with vegetables? We can buy them, 사요, eat them, 먹어요, or wash them, 씻어요. But now we only have one option left, so let's fill this blank with the word 씻어요. Repeat after me. 로한이 채소를 씻어요. Great job! Now let me tell you what I'm going to do to have a meal in Korean. 저는 식당에 가지 않아요. 저는 고기와 채소를 사요. 채소를 씻어요. 고기는 구워요. 고기와 채소를 먹어요. 차는 안 마셔요. 접시를 씻어요. Now it's your turn. Please pause the video for a moment and tell me what you're going to do to have a meal in Korean. Excellent! Today, you learned how to make declarative and interrogative sentences in the present tense and to answer questions in Korean as well. We practiced how to do that using only verbs today, so during our next lesson, we will practice the same grammar points with adjectives. We will also discover what Aram and her friends look like. Then, see you next class. Bye!